Welcome to the Contrarians, where we are right and you are wrong. I'm Julio.
And I'm Alex. Here on the show, we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. For the first half of each episode, Contrarians Corner, we trash the fresh red tomatoes and praise the rotten green splotches, making our case any way we can.
The aptly titled Real Talk serves as the second half of each episode. This is where we discuss our true feelings on the movie we're covering. For more information on our podcast and to browse past episodes, you can head over to our website, wearethecontrarians.com.
From there, you can also access our Patreon and merchandise, because capitalism.
If you enjoy our attempts at comedic film discussions, we encourage you to subscribe and leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you use.
If you'd like to reach out to us directly, that's what social media is for. You can find us on most platforms as @ContrarianPrime.
You can also see what we look like if you go to youtube.com/@ContrarianPrime, and you can contact us by email at wearethecontrarians@gmail.com.
I think that covers it.
Then it's time for the podcast. And we are recording for Contrarians Corner for Peter Pan, the 2003 PJ Hogan version.
Hello and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always, not as always, but joined specifically for this venture to Neverland with my co-host and partner in the contrary, Julio Oliveira. We could have done a whole summer event of just interpretations of Peter Pan, Peter and Wendy.
There's a very recent one that I had forgotten existed until I started reading the quotes for the one we're doing.
There was one from like 2015, something in there. I remember there was one that was like a 3D one that Adele Exarchopoulos was supposed to play Tiger Lily, but for some reason got pushed aside for that.
Is that the one where who's your girl with the dragon tattoo?
Numi Rapace or Rooney Mara?
No, her American version.
Oh.
Yeah. The American Numi Rapace. Yeah, Rooney Mara. She plays Tiger Lily in not the most recent one, but
might have been that one. Isn't like Hugh Jackman in that movie?
Yes, and you would think he would play Hook, but he doesn't. You know who plays Hook?
Who? Garrett
Hedlund.
I mean, of course. Let's see here. Pan. It was just called Pan. It was much cleaner. Not unlike the movie we're discussing today, a box office flop. I can't comment on it because I've never seen it, but what I can tell you is at least this one we're talking about today goes for something. And what it goes for is in the year 2003 saying, look at all these things we can do with computers. Isn't it crazy?
Do you think they saw the trailers for Lord of the Rings and they're like, oh, sure.
Yeah, just to get ahead of that, Lord of the Rings Return of the King came out just days before this. And for those of you who aren't familiar, that just absolutely spanked the box office. Had less of a budget than this movie did and went on to make 10 times the amount of money that Peter Pan, PJ Hogan's Peter Pan did. But it is Peter Pan, directed by PJ Hogan with a screenplay by PJ Hogan and Michael Goldenberg. This, of course, based on Peter and Wendy, the... what was it? It was a novel, right? Originally?
Yeah. It's, I don't know if it qualifies as a children's book or not, because...
Early 1900s.
I mean, it could still be a children's book.
Yeah. No. I'm sorry. I was ending my thought with the date. Yeah.
Yeah. I've read like an abridged version, and I'm familiar with some of the adaptations, including one that we've done on the show, Alex.
What's that?
Do you realize that Peter Pan is just a Drop Dead Fred prequel?
Oh, okay. We're at the point where we've done enough movies that I sometimes forget ones that we've actually covered until it comes back up. I have not, nor will I ever forget talking about Drop Dead Fred. Although I have to say, in a more adult, and I don't mean that in the sense of like R rating, I mean that in the sense of like the characters are older, Phoebe Cates would have played a pretty good Wendy.
I mean, she does. That's who she is in Drop Dead Fred.
Stop.
I'm pretty sure I even called it out on the episode.
I can't remember what it was. I was at a flea market and saw like a poster with her on it for something. I was just like, Drop Dead Fred. What did you do to my sweet Phoebe Cates? Well, fortunately, there's really no one of any name, value, or repute in this, so it didn't end any careers. I'm told that someone in this is from the Harry Potter franchise.
Yep. It's Jason Isaacs playing the dual role in this one. Did you know, and I could be way off, so listeners correct me, but I'm pretty sure about this, that it's kind of a tradition for the same actor to play Mr. Darling and Hook?
Makes sense.
But that's not the case in the actual Hook movie, right? Spielberg's Hook? I don't think Dustin Hoffman is playing. Oh, well, it wouldn't make sense because I guess you don't see Mr. Darling in that one. So.
Yeah. I was about to say, brother, I haven't seen that movie in 25 years. So I remember Robin Williams. I remember the kid who they use as like a cannonball. And I remember that Julia Roberts is Tinkerbell. That is the extent of my memory of that.
Rufio?
Oh, Rufio, of course. Yeah. And then
skateboarding.
The food that they eat that's all like neon colored that as a kid I thought was the coolest shit in the world. So I remember more about that than I thought. The scheme is opening up now.
What is your name?
What is your name?
Wendy, Myra, Angela, Darling.
Peter Pan.
Where do you live?
Second to the right and then straight on till morning.
They put that on the letters?
Don't get any letters.
But your mother gets letters.
Don't have a mother.
Released on Christmas Eve in the United Kingdom and on Christmas Day in the United States. Always a bit of a gamble, those Christmas Day releases. Currently sits at 77% on Rotten Tomatoes, thus we will be negative about it here in the first half. There are some famous critics that absolutely, revered this and praised it. So much so that it got a Game Boy Advance game in November of 2003.
So you know you made it.
That's in direct response to Roger Ebert giving it the goods. So anyway, Julio, we'll get to more of the details, the numbers, the stats in the second half. 77% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it is a movie that comes along with some praise and some positive reinforcement. Which quotes did you pull for us?
I skipped past Ebert's because it was a Roger Ebert quote. And I was like, this makes sense, but it's not fun. So let's go with the fun quotes. Such as Robert Rodden's quote from Laramie Moviescope, who says, the best movie version of Peter Pan ever made.
Wow.
Robert, what's going on here? How many versions of Peter Pan have you watched?
I can tell you that PJ Hogan's Peter Pan does not have one of the all-time Disney attractions that always has a line of at least 90 minutes when you go to Disney World. I think 75 minutes is the lowest I've ever seen that ride at. Insane.
And what do you do? Like, do you just fly?
Yeah, no, it's like one of those track rides where you get into like a little pod and it takes you through the plot of the movie, and there's like animatronics and machines and the music's playing. I haven't done it in years because every time I'm there, I'm like, I remember how fun it was when I was a kid, and especially when you get to the part where the crocodile is trying to eat Hook. That's a lot of fun. But every time I'm there and I see it's like 75 minutes to 90 minutes, I'm like, dog, I'm just gonna go watch Phil Hard Magic or hop in line for something else.
So technically, you don't know. They could have updated the graphics, the little
robots
puppets and everything. Yeah, the robots. It could be Jason Isaacs at the very end of the ride.
I guess you're right.
Getting eaten by a crocodile.
It would not make much sense for a Universal property to be in Disney World, but, stranger things have happened.
Now it would, Alex, because Disney owns everything.
We're getting there.
Also, I think Peter Pan is just like, it might be public domain by now.
That's a good point.
I'm surprised that there's not a serial killer Peter Pan movie already being pitched.
The part in the ride where you fly over London is so fucking cool. It's dark and it's that forced perspective thing where it looks like you're literally flying over a city in with your arms out. You can fly, you can fly.
Just like this movie.
Yeah. I'm getting excited talking about the Disney version that came out 100 years before this movie.
All right, let's move on to Mike Sage from Peterborough This Week, who says, the closest we'll ever get to a faithfully XXX Peter Pan. This very storybook retelling is certainly adventuresome. Who was asking for a faithfully XXX Peter Pan?
Well, apparently homeboy there. And it is, there's nothing XXX in this, and that's kind of perverted considering these are all like
Children.
with the exception of Peter. Yeah, children.
I think the funniest thing is that him asking for a faithfully triple X Peter Pan kind of implies that he's been disappointed by the less faithful triple X Peter Pans he's watched.
I've been watching Peter Pan porn for 30 years, and this is the closest we've come to a good one. The gal who played Tinkerbell,
Not Julia Roberts.
Ludivine Sagnier, was 22 here. And she definitely, I don't want to say sensationalize or overly sexualize her, but she definitely has a different energy than Julia Roberts did in Hook.
And we speak as Julia Roberts authorities, having covered Erin Brockovich and My Best Friend's Wedding.
Absolutely.
Next, James Rocci from Netflix. Just Netflix. They pulled his Netflix review from when Netflix allowed you to review movies. He says, P.J. Hogan's adaptation of the children's classic is full of dread, desire, and delight, and is one of the best family films in a long while. Were we starved for family films in 2003, Alex?
Well, we had Daddy Daycare, former Contrarians entry. No, for Christ's sakes, no, Elf came out that year. And Freaky Friday, previously covered on the Contrarians as well. I mean, it's not like Toy Story 2 or some shit came out that year, but just right there, off the top of my head, those are two movies that were better family movies than Peter Pan. And less sexualized Tinkerbells.
Nothing sexual about Will Ferrell in that movie.
I mean, we do kind of sexualize Jamie Lee Curtis in Freaky Friday, but let's fucking go.
It's for fun. It's all in good fun.
Yeah.
And finally, we have Adam Sternberg from the National Post, who says the promotional tagline promises a Peter Pan like you've never seen before, and that's true. But moreover, this feels like Peter Pan as it always should have been done. Yet another critic that kind of poo-poos every other iteration of Peter Pan.
Both pornographic and non.
Yes. The way you do it is with an up-and-coming director that's recovering from a massive flop, a bunch of no-name actors and actresses in the cast, and Jason Isaacs warming up for his Harry Potter stint.
So this Jason Isaacs fella is the one from Harry Potter.
Yes, he's one of the bad guys. Actually, he might have already been in, because I think they introduced him in the second Harry Potter. So
okay.
Was that like around this time? It's Chamber of Secrets. So
wasn't the first one like 99 or 2000? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he was already. This is what he did in between Harry Potter movies. Maybe this was his break. This was Jason Alexander done some checks in between seasons of Seinfeld.
And as we'll get to in the second half, there's reason to believe that these guys thought they were sitting on a gold mine. So Jeremy Sumpter plays Peter here. So let's go. Let's voyage away to Edwardian London.
Hook, with eyes blue as forget-me-nots, save when he clawed your belly with the iron hook he has instead of a right hand, at which time his eyes turn red.
Wendy Darling tells her younger brothers John and Michael stories of Captain Hook and his pirates. Peter Pan overhears from outside their nursery window. Dissatisfied with Wendy's stories, Aunt Millicent advises the Darlings to focus on her future prospects. One night, Wendy sees Peter return to the nursery to watch her sleep, but his shadow is bitten off by the family's nurse dog. Dog is fucking adorable in this movie, by the way. Nana.
Yep.
At school, Wendy's teacher discovers her drawings of Peter, attempting to intercept a disciplinary letter meant for her father. Wendy inadvertently embarrasses him when Nana chases her at the local bank. So, help me out here. Their mom, Olivia Williams, is she Bruce Willis's wife from The Sixth Sense?
Oh, fuck. I think she is.
Okay.
I had a more niche, maybe, reference. I was going to say she's Jason Isaacs' Rushmore.
Oh, you're right. That's excellent. But yeah, I can just picture her at the end of Sixth Sense. That face is just burned into my brain where you can see her breath,
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this before. We have an episode about it. There's only one time you see the Sixth Sense for the first time. According to her Wikipedia page, also, she played Moira McTaggart in X-Men The Last Stand in an uncredited role. I would challenge this, but I ain't sure as shit ain't going back and watching The Last Stand.
It was originally a credited role, and then she sent a letter.
she saw the dailies and was like, nope. The dad's an asshole. The kids are, very imaginative. They want more from life. Peter's like watching her sleep and sneaking into her room. It's a bit uncomfortable. And he's got, as I mentioned, Tinkerbell, who was Ludivine Sagnier, I believe is how you pronounce her name. She's a French actress who I know from nothing else. Julio, you got anything to drop on me here?
Nope, because my primary thought was something I brought up in my best friend's wedding, which is like, PJ Hogan, you are coasting along Hollywood. You escaped Australia, in great part thanks to people like Toni Collette, Rachel Griffiths. And I think the only reason he survived Unconditional Love is because he had, I think, the way of Julia Roberts' performance in my best friend's wedding to push him through to the next project, right? So why would you cast a nobody as Tinkerbell when you could just bring back some of your friends that have been helping you along the way, right? Can you imagine Toni Collette as Tinkerbell, Rachel Griffiths as Tinkerbell?
God, that would rule.
Kathy Bates as Tinkerbell. Like, he owed her for Unconditional Love.
Kathy Bates as the mean aunt in this. Millicent, was that her name?
Kathy Bates as the aunt, Rupert Everett as Hook, Dan Aykroyd as Smee, and Toni Collette. Let's bring Toni Collette back into the fold as Tinkerbell.
Yeah. Find a spot for Peter Sarsgaard somewhere in there. Hilariously, though, the PJ Hogan tie-ins continue on either Unconditional Love or My Best Friend's Wedding. We were talking about what has Rupert Everett been up to, and we discovered the last thing he was in is something neither of us have seen. It was Napoleon, because that didn't really apply to either of us.
Yep.
And this Ludivine Sagnier, her most recent role was in Napoleon as well. Looks like she has one of the upper tier roles in it, a socialite and noblewoman. She played Madame Italian. So is really Scott a big PJ Hogan fan? Was PJ Hogan a producer on Napoleon? You seem to be more familiar with the other retellings of Pan than I. Is it always the case that Tinkerbell gets really jealous of Peter pining for another woman?
I think so.
Okay.
I think, even Hook maybe too. The problem is that I think that it's such a complicated thing because she's kind of like one of the most whimsical aspects of the movie, of the story, but also
I have in my notes whimsical.
Yeah, but also she is one of the worst, I was going to say people. I guess she's a person. She's a type of person. She's one of the worst people in the story. Like, she is, she causes a lot of damage, and so maybe I think that there's some iterations of this story that wisely soften those edges, and they're like, maybe we shouldn't make her a complete bitch. Maybe she should be just kind of charming. But here, PJ Hogan went all out, and this is the most I've ever disliked Tinkerbell. Was that the case with you? Were you just like, what's her problem? Why can't she just let it be?
Yeah, she intentionally sabotages shit. Like, she tries to kill Wendy at one point. Like, it's she's quite mean, and but then of course the movie wants you to feel sad when she almost perishes at one point. This actress is very good with the emoting. You kind of wonder what they could have done if they gave him actual lines, but who's to say?
That's a decision, right? Like, PJ Hogan just decided to tie the actress's arm behind her back. I'm like, look, let's make it a challenge.
Or in this case, her wings.
Can you imagine handicapping your actor like that? She's already following up the footsteps of Julia Roberts, and you're like, on top of that, you're not gonna talk. Go.
Just shut your mouth. In search of his shadow, Peter befriends Wendy, who sews it back onto him. He invites Wendy and her brothers to Neverland so she can tell stories to his gang of lost boys. Using Tinkerbell's fairy dust, the four fly to Neverland while Nana alerts Mr. and Mrs. Darling of what happened. Good dog. In Neverland, Captain Hook and his pirate crew soon attack the children. Jealous of Peter's affection for Wendy, Tinkerbell tricks the Lost Boys into shooting the girl out of the sky, who mistakes her for a bird. Yeah, that's just like, kill her. Fortunately, Wendy survives, saved by an acorn Peter gave her earlier. Peter banishes Tinkerbell and ends their friendship. This sequence of them flying, it's not over London. It's not You Can Fly. It's way more, like they're literally flying through the cosmos, like through time and space. And
it's the third act of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Julio, we live in a time where we have seen not one but two Avatar films. So you'll forgive me if the CG here comes across as Bush League. That being said, I imagine if you were one of the people who actually went and saw this movie, probably looked pretty cool at the time. But we always call out in here things that age poorly, be it storytelling, choices, narratives, what have you. In this case, these visuals just don't hold up, my friend.
Michael, take hold of my ankle! Wendy, take hold of my ankle!
Whatever happens, don't let go!
I'm going to give PJ Hogan the benefit of the doubt, knowing that this was his fourth movie. He kind of knew what he was doing. I am going to say this is an intentional choice that just, unfortunately, doesn't work. I don't even know that it worked back then, Alex, because as we joked about earlier, this was facing off against Lord of the Rings that weekend. So as far as the technology, we were already there. You could have, I mean, if you wanted to, he could have made it look better, right? And it's Peter Pan, so you can invest in that property. It's well-known IP, especially since you're saving a buttload of money by not having big stars in the cast. But I think he was going with the idea of, well, it's a really silly story. It's all very out there, very weird. So it has to look kind of weird. We got to go with the kind of weirdness that looks bad. And I think it backfires because you're right. It looks like shit. It looks like the backgrounds look like when you've, those arcade games that having on for too long. And so the images
like burned.
They're burned and faded away. That's what it looks like when they're flying, especially when they're flying through the city. It doesn't look good. It's supposed to be this awe-inspiring moment, right? Like the kids are getting to fly for the first time and they're escaping their mundane lives. They're getting to live their stories. It's a bummer. I was hoping that it was just going to be that moment, and then that once we got to Neverland, maybe it would fit better, right? Because one thing is, London is London. So maybe it's too much of a disconnect when you see London as this bad special effect. But once you get to Neverland, well, we don't have a Neverland in the real world that you would compare it to. So in theory, it would be like, once you get to Neverland, it's fine. Anything goes. But I think the problem is that we've also seen so many Neverlands in so many movies that, yeah, he really needed to try harder. Just go push the envelope much, much further than what he does here.
A lot of this, I believe, was just shot in a studio, if you couldn't tell, with, at the time, it's not primitive, because the fucking Matrix had already come out. Titanic had come out. So you are at fault, PJ Hogan. You are the problem.
Do you think it's just that Peter Jackson hogged all the VFX houses in Hollywood? It's like, no.
Well, a lot of Lord of the Ring, I mean, the big settings are CG, but a lot of that's still practical, like the on the ground stuff. But anyway,
Alex, I hate to break it to you, but those are not real trolls. They're animation.
Oh, it's been forever. I'm thinking of the orcs. The orcs were the ones that looked really awesome, right? They were like made up and shit.
Yeah, but there's dragons.
I've seen the Lord of the Rings movies each one time, and it was in real time, so you'll forgive me if my memory is a bit hazy. I haven't had a spare year to go back and revisit them. But I assume Peter Jackson knocked it out of the park with his shit.
I think that he just clogged the infrastructure in Hollywood. I think that when PJ Hogan was shooting,
all the resources were rerouted to him.
Yeah. Can you imagine PJ Hogan shoots his movie? It's like green screens everything. He's like, don't worry. Once we get to post, we'll just send this to the people that know how to make it look good.
Oh, duh. I'm fucking blanking on Smeagol. That was like groundbreaking, revolutionary CG shit. Duh. Yeah.
Yeah. And PJ Hogan knocking on doors, trying to get somebody to grab his hard drive so they can work on Peter Pan. I'm sorry. We're working on Lord of the Rings.
I don't know what an external hard drive is, and I don't want to know. When we meet Hook, he just like kills a dude straight up. And so establishes a tone of this ain't your daddy's Hook. I think he like shoots somebody or some shit. But there's a lot of chaos and violence throughout this. Violence in the sense of, the MPAA style of you don't actually see blood, so it's fine. But there's like a lot of people just dying on and off screen.
Yep. Did you recognize Jason Isaacs when he showed up as Hook? Okay, then maybe
I recognized him as the dad, but like I don't know if I've seen anything this dude's been in.
Oh no. Yeah, okay, that's what I was asking. I was asking you if you saw Hook. You were like, hey, it's the dad. You scratch your head. I'm like, what's happening?
He was in The Patriot, which again I haven't seen in a long time. Wait, is he the bad guy in The Patriot?
Maybe, I don't know. I haven't seen The Patriot in as long as the same amount of time has passed since I watched The Patriot as since you watched Lord of the Rings.
He played Colonel William Tavington, and he is the main antagonist of the 2000 historical drama film The Patriot. By God, who manages to kill 2 of Mel Gibson's sons on the battlefield, I think. At least
warm
one.
Up. It was all warm up to him killing a bunch of pirates and attempting to murder children in this movie.
I was dreaming, Smee, of Pan, Captain. And in my dream, I was a magnanimous fellow, full of forgiveness.
Okay, but do you think it makes sense that Wendy doesn't recognize her father? Like when she sees Hook, she's like, wait, at the very least, like she should go, this guy looks like my dad.
Papa? Yeah, you would think, but we dealt with something like that recently of like this person looks, how do you not recognize that? I can't remember what that is, but
some superhero movie.
Probably, yeah. There's other movies like that where, an actor will play 2 characters and the other one's supposed to be oblivious to who they are. And that's always a very confusing trope to me. But on a positive note, Jason Isaacs looks badass as Hook.
With his high-tech, what do you call it? Not punk. Is it neopunk? Rock punk?
Steampunk?
Steampunk. Yeah, his steampunk Hook.
Rock punk?
I couldn't tell.
What is this, Royal Rumble 2013? Yeah, he looks cool. He looks the part. And up until this point in the movie, again, we've just dealt with children, but he is certainly the most committed to the role. But yeah, he has like a whole apparatus that he wears with the Hook. It's pretty cool. Wendy agrees to the Lost Boys' request to be their mother, while Peter takes the role of their father. Meanwhile, John and Michael encounter Tiger Lily, a Native American princess, and Hook and his crew take the 3 to the Black Castle. Peter, Wendy, and the Lost Boys rescue them as Hook is chased by the crocodile who has followed him for years. After a celebration at the crocodile here has the clock ticking in its stomach, and it's not explained at all in this movie. So if you've never seen or read a Peter Pan story, you're shit out of luck. You're just like, why is everyone okay with the fact that the crocodile's stomach is ticking?
I thought the Hook explained it, but that I might have missed it. Maybe I was just filling in the gaps because, like you said,
if he did, I missed that. But yeah, that's the main thing I remember from the Peter Pan cartoon that Disney made in 1953. Is that's when the crocodile comes around. That's the thing that's burned into my brain. So maybe I just willingly ignored it in this for some reason.
Well, there's on my notes it just says Hook's position. And I remember there's just a big chunk of the movie where he's just talking, and I was like, oh, he's just explaining the
There's large chunks of the movie where people are just talking, so that's fair.
That's true. It's like chunks of the movie where people are flying and chunks of the movie where people are talking.
After a celebration at the Native American camp, Peter shows Wendy the fairies home, and the 2 share a romantic dance. During their kind of exploration of Neverland, we learn that the mermaids are evil. They'll eat you, which I would last about 2 seconds. I'm a sucker for the sirens on the water. I'd be like, mermaids, and just get devoured.
Alex, let's get this out of the way. Tiger Lily and her people. Problematic depiction of Native Americans? Or we're giving them a pass? It's like 2003.
Aho!
Well, Julio, it's hard to say. This certainly isn't the tribe that's depicted in the 1953 animated film of the same story. I don't know much. I can't really find too much in the way about Carson Gray, who played Tiger Lily. I don't know if she, was Native American, what have you. Because I know that's has been something that we've lived through in recent years. The idea of indigenous people and Native Americans being more properly represented because they're cast as actual Native Americans, or they bring on consultants. That dude that was on the set of Flower Moon. I'm not sure that existed here. I can't say again that
there wasn't an advisor from Neverland.
Yeah, exactly. To be honest, like the first reveal, I was like, oof, I don't know about 2024 standards if this is holding up to it. So I guess a roundabout way to answer your question, I don't know if this is something that I'm not to say. I can't speak to that, but in my opinion, this likely would not hold up by today's standards.
I'll be curious to see how it was, what the Tiger Lily character was like in the most recent Peter Pan adaptation. I know, or at least I seem to remember that that was it 2015, the other one, the Pan one with Hugh Jackman. I think there was a bit of a backlash because Rooney Mara was playing the character in a way that felt like it was came across as stereotypical. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like if it was a problem then, it probably would have been a problem in 2003. Maybe it's just that not enough people watched the movie. That's
a fair point. People were still like reeling from Matrix Revolutions. Like, what the fuck was that about? It
almost feels like the character is there because it's a character that's in all the other versions of the story, because the Tiger Lily character doesn't really amount to anything, right? Like, am I forgetting like a big role that she plays in any part of the movie later on?
No, it really feels in this that Tiger Lily just shows up to go, hey, it's Tiger Lily.
Is a Native American chainsaw? Is she even? I guess she's not really Native American. She's Native Neverlandian.
Sure. After a celebration at the Native American camp, Peter shows Wendy the fairies home and the two share a romantic dance. Hook spies on the pair and convinces Tinkerbell that Peter will eventually choose to leave Neverland for Wendy. When Wendy asks Peter to, again, he's like 110 and she's 12. Like, what's going on here? Right? He's supposed to be old as shit.
Yes, but I was wondering the entire time if it's just Arrested Development angle on it, right? He's 110, but he's like vampires. Well, depending on which author you're asking, right? Sometimes vampires stay at the same maturity level as when they became vampires. So if you were bitten as a child, then you're always a child. You're a child forever. Whereas like some of them mature. So in this case, I think he may be 110, but he's still a kid, which makes it really frustrating.
He's Josh Baskin.
Yes. My notes, I call him a Judd Apatow man-child, but I mean, Josh Baskins is also frustrating if you're looking at it as somebody who would have to deal with him as opposed to somebody that's just watching him in a movie.
Why do you spoil everything? We have fun, don't we? I taught you to fight and to fly. What more could there be?
There is so much more.
What? What else is there?
I don't know. I think it becomes clearer when you grow up.
Well, I will not grow up. You cannot make me.
When Wendy asks Peter to express his feelings, he angrily demands she return home, refusing to believe that he can ever feel love without having to grow up. Been there, brother. Peter then flies off, returning to the darling nursery and unsuccessfully tries shutting the open window, determined to keep Wendy, John, and Michael in Neverland. Wendy urges her brothers to return home with her as they are starting to forget their parents. The Lost Boys eventually decide to join them, dismaying Peter. Wendy says goodbye to Peter, leaving him a cup of medicine to drink. When Wendy leaves the hideout, she and the rest of the boys are captured by Hook's crew, who also poisoned Peter's medicine. However, Tinkerbell drinks it and succumbs. A distraught Peter repeatedly proclaims his belief in fairies and telepathically reaches out to everyone at Neverland and London to do the same. This is like the end of Elf, where they all start singing Santa Claus is coming to town.
Well, I just thought of the X-Men. I just thought Professor X putting Cerebro on and just contacting everybody. Believe in fairies, my X-Men. It's really weird the way that they handle the Tinkerbell thing, because the entire time, she's like Chewbacca, right? She's making noises and pantomiming, and it looks like Peter knows what she's saying. Peter understands her. But at the most important moment, when she's flying in to tell him, hey, that's poison, don't drink it, he doesn't understand what she's saying. He doesn't get it. Really? Was it necessary for her to drink the poison?
I mean, that's just what the movie is, man.
And of course, Hook just left the poison there, walked away. It's not even like a Bond villain, because Bond villains at least had the decency to give you a monologue, right? Here, no, he just puts the poison and walks away. It's like, I'm sure it'll be okay.
I do believe in fairies. I do.
I do believe in fairies.
I do believe in fairies.
I do.
I do believe in fairies. I do.
I do believe in fairies. I do.
This revives Tinkerbell, who helps Peter rescue Wendy and free the Lost Boys. During the ensuing fight with the pirates, Hook forcefully uses Tinkerbell's dust to grant him flying abilities during their duel. And this is actually pretty dope, all the fighting that's going on. There's a Wilhelm scream at one point during it. Did you notice that?
No. I always find out about the Wilhelm screams after the fact when somebody else brings it up.
The battle cry in this is, I do believe in fairies, I do. And prior to the battle, at some point during this portion of the film, Hook's already killed 2 people, and this is where
he crosses the line.
Snow, do you remember when Smee breaks the 4th wall?
Yeah, he does it twice.
Oh, he does? Because at one point, like, he's talking to the crew, he's like, says something like, this has already gone bad, and he turns and breaks the 4th wall and goes, 2 dead already. When did he do it again?
It's sometime during the fight, I think. Because my first note is like, does Smee just break the 4th wall? And then a few lines later, Smee is out of control. One time is okay. More than once, you're Peter Bogdanovich.
I have in my notes here, there's still 30 minutes left in this very long battle sequence.
So when I said he crossed the line, though, before this, Hook kills a fairy that's just standing around. Like, he goes up to the fairy and goes, right, I don't believe in fairies. And the fairy has a heart attack.
He should have just flicked it and went, ah. During their duel, Hook taunts Peter about Wendy wanting to abandon him and how she will eventually grow up and marry another man. Weakened, Peter falls and is incapacitated. Hook allows Wendy to say goodbye to Peter before killing him. Finally, professing her love for Peter, Wendy kisses him, bringing back his happiness. Peter defeats Hook, who is swallowed up by a crocodile, because they have to kill his ability to believe and his happiness. They keep saying over and over again that he's going to die old. He's old, alone, and done for. A lot of like melodrama at this portion, surrounded just by copious amounts of green screen.
Peter turns purple, I think, when he's kissed and discovers puberty. It's the whole thing about the like, kiss, right?
This whole battle scene is like all red also. It's just like, I guess at dusk, and it's just it's like a scene out of Only God Forgives or something, just soaked in neon.
PJ Hogan just gave up on color correcting. Like, fuck it. If Peter Jackson's not going to let me do it, then fine, this is what you get. They had to make that December 25th opening date. They did, okay, but the idea of the kiss and how Wendy doesn't tell him what a kiss is, right? Because at first, when they first meet, she says, I'm going to give you a kiss, but instead she gives him a thimble. And then now, in the climax, she says, I'm going to give you a thimble. And instead she gives him a kiss. But he's already kind of passed out. So when she's saying, I'm going to give him a thimble, she's saying it for Hook. So Hook will let her do it. But Hook knows the difference between a thimble and a kiss. So why is he acting surprised? I don't understand what the logistics are here. Who are you trying to fool, Wendy? And then, of course,
it wasn't even clever. It should have been like a Hershey's kiss.
Right. Maybe those didn't exist back in 1900. They're just respecting the source material. But yeah, basically respect for acknowledging.
I call bullshit. Hershey's Kisses 1907. So modern retellings of this could include Hershey's Kisses.
Yeah, there you go. Peter puts it in his pocket, and then halfway through the movie, he pulls out this goo because it's melted. Like, I don't like kisses.
Yeah, it's all like just drooping through the foil.
But right, the power of a first kiss, I guess. I kind of applaud the boldness in showing us this kid's first kiss, right? I guess it's the first kiss for both of them, but the idea that obviously she just handles it maturely, and he gains superpowers. I guess it might have been too much, maybe, right? I don't think that there's anything like this in the Disney Peter Pan, the more innocent Peter Pans, where a kiss is what unlocks Peter's ability to defeat Hook. Before, it used to be just good swordsmanship and the ability to fly. But here, maybe Hogan went a little too far with the sexual undertones.
Again, Peter defeats Hook, who is swallowed up by a crocodile. Sometimes, even when you know something's coming, it's still satisfying.
Does he break the fourth wall as he's about to be eaten?
Yeah, he looks up, he goes, done for, or he finishes whatever they were saying.
And then Smee breaks the fourth wall again. I was like, I told you.
He goes, boy, what a crazy Christmas day. Covering the Jolly Roger and fairy dust, the ship, Peter flies Wendy and the boys back to London, where they are reunited with their parents, who adopt the rest of the Lost Boys. Slightly, who just got lost on the way to London, arrives at the house late, but is adopted by Aunt Millicent, while Mr. Darling reconciles with his children. He owes this all to the dog. The dog is the hero here. Peter promises Wendy he will never forget her, and one day he will return to visit her before returning to Neverland with Tinkerbell. Despite never seeing Peter again, she continues telling his story to her children, and in turn to their grandchildren and descendants. And my last note of this is when the movie ended, I did the thing where I wiggled my mouse to see how much time was left. The credits for this movie are 11 minutes long.
It's a lot of lost children.
And I watched them, and it was just so many fucking people worked on the visual and the design portion of this movie. Now, we have AI to do these things.
Hey, ChatGPT, what does it look like when Peter Pan and Hook fight for the love of a teenager at dusk? I didn't understand what was happening in this final portion. Weren't they broke? Wasn't the whole point of the opening of the movie to set up that Jason Isaacs, real Jason Isaacs, not Hook, but the dad, Mr. Darling, needed a better position? That's why it was so important that he impressed his boss and all the stuff. And then he adopts 10 kids at the end. and then did you even recognize who this kid was?
They can start a sweatshop now.
I guess he's going to exploit them.
Oh, yeah. The one kid who was late and needed a parent. It was we have not spent any time with this kid anywhere else in the movie. Why am I supposed to feel sorry for him?
What is the matter, child?
I couldn't find the house. And now everyone has a mother. Except me.
Also, he was not late. They had just arrived. That scene had just started.
He was standing in the doorway, and they were all in the room, I guess, is the difference. And he was like, hey, what's going on over there, guys?
Yeah, I felt a lot like manufactured drama. I didn't care for it. But I guess that is that might be the point, Alex, that this is not a story that I connect with. Maybe in order to enjoy P.J. Hogan's Peter Pan, you need to be P.J. Hogan or P.J. Hogan adjacent. You have to experience some sort of nostalgia while watching it, where you connect the dots when the movie is not connected them for you, right? Mm-hmm. I think that this kid, was it Slightly? That's his name? Sure. The kid that gets left behind, that arrives late or whatever, that's probably a character from the book or a character from the play or a character from, that's somebody. And so the movie gives you 30 seconds with him, and if you know who the character is from the backstory of the property of the IP, then you're like, oh yeah, that's him. But if you're somebody like you or like me, you're like, what is this? Why should I care? Why are we still watching this movie? It should have ended the moment that they got back into the house.
I'm slightly annoyed that I'm having to watch this right now.
Let's make the movie slightly longer. I don't know who was watching this and was like, oh yeah, we need a happy ending for the aunt. Aunt Bill, who gives a shit?
Not me.
P.J. Hogan, that's who.
You know who definitely didn't give a shit? Movie-going audiences. Because this movie lost $95 million.
Oh, man. That's rough, because
approximately. It was between 70 and 95, so, not that much, Julio. That's just a week's pay for you and I.
I was going to say, it's a week's that's a day's pay for Peter Jackson.
Yeah, if you broke it down that way, I'm sure it is. Break it down to that run of Return of the King coming out to something like that. But Peter Pan, sadly, a mythical tale, not unlike that of Lord of the Rings, released same time period, just wasn't to be. But as we mentioned at the beginning, this movie is held in positive regard and comes along with praise quite often. How did we feel about it? I think you might be able to tell a little bit, but I think we're going to find out here in the second half. Julio, you ready to move to Real Talk?
Let's do it. And actually, Alex, what we're going to use for the throw to Real Talk, or for like the outro of this segment is, are you familiar with the song Clocks from Coldplay?
Of course. Yep.
Have you ever seen the music video?
I think so.
All right. Well,
Remind me.
Listeners, if you're not familiar, in between Contrarians Corner and Real Talk, go to YouTube and type Peter Pan Coldplay. And then come back to Real Talk.
My God.